Welcome back, everyone. Before we dive in, make sure you drop your thoughts and the lessons you took from this story in the comments. And don't forget to like and subscribe. Let's get into it. Janelle met Darnell in the summer of 2004 on the hot streets of Atlanta. She was 26 and working night shifts as a nurse's aide at Grady Memorial Hospital. The hours were brutal, but she found pride in the work. Her paychecks were never large, not with rent and her younger brother's college fund to cover. Yet there was satisfaction in helping older patients with meals and medicines and seeing them smile when family members did not come. Darnell worked security at a shipping yard near the railroad tracks. He talked about big dreams, owning a home, enrolling in community college, finding a way to move his mother out of public housing. Janelle liked that. He spoke boldly, but he showed up. He understood grit. They understood each other's grind in a way that felt inevitable. Their courtship was not glamorous. There were no expensive dinners or weekend trips. Most nights, Darnell brought Janelle a peach soda and a small bag of chips at the end of her shift, and they sat on the steps outside her apartment talking about everything and nothing. They made do with what they had. Slowly, Janelle realized she did not mind sharing her small space with someone else. It was Darnell's sense of humor, the way he cooked breakfast after her 12-hour shifts, the way he found the light when everything else felt heavy. Atlanta heat clung to their clothes, but their little routines felt like shade. Their plans were simple, their affection practical. The years that followed were not easy. Darnell was laid off from the shipping yard and bounced between security gigs and warehouse shifts. Janelle picked up extra hours, sometimes doubles, sometimes back-to-back weekends, to keep them afloat. When Darnell spoke about going back to school, Janelle made a way. She took out a personal loan in her name to cover his tuition and textbooks, fully aware it would take years to repay. She did not complain. Not when Darnell's son from a previous relationship needed new clothes. Not when his mother, Loretta, lost her job and moved in for a couple of weeks that became almost a year. Janelle balanced schedules and swallowed exhaustion. She did hair on her living room couch between shifts when she had the energy. She believed in forward motion. Janelle sold the small patch of land her father had left her after he passed away to pay off some of Darnell's credit card debt and to put a down payment on a second-hand Honda, so he could get to work reliably. She juggled 2, sometimes 3 jobs, overnights at the hospital, cleaning offices in Buckhead on Sundays, and taking on private home care shifts when families needed help. Darnell promised that one day things would change. He would make it up to her. They would break out of the cycle and have something to call their own. He said it often, not as a line, but as a vow he seemed to believe even when there was little reason to. They married in 2008 at the Fulton County Courthouse. The ceremony was modest. Janelle's brother Maurice, Darnell's mother Loretta, and 2 friends stood as witnesses. There were no matching dresses or catered dinners, but it felt right. The judge asked whether they wanted a prenuptial agreement. Darnell grinned and joked about, just in case we hit it big. They laughed, but Janelle heard her mother's warnings in her head. Janelle's mother had taught her that love and money can pull in opposite directions, and that security is not disloyalty, it is wisdom. Janelle insisted that if there was ever any big windfall, she should be protected for everything she had given. They signed a simple agreement, handwritten by Maurice and notarized at a corner store, stating that if Darnell came into any significant money during the marriage and they later divorced, Janelle would receive all of it. Darnell barely skimmed it. "I would never leave you," he said, kissing her forehead. "If I ever get rich, it will be because you helped me get there." The pen scratched paper. The document slid into a folder and then into the back of a drawer. Life pressed forward. The years rolled on. Sometimes things improved. Sometimes they unraveled. Darnell finished community college, found a steady job as a warehouse manager, and for a while it seemed their faith and labor were paying off. Still, the stress never truly receded. Darnell's son needed money for a first car. Loretta's health worsened, and Janelle was the one who took her to appointments and sorted insurance forms. Whenever a crisis came, Janelle cleaned it up. She found the money, called the right people, cooked meals, and kept the family from splitting apart at the seams. By her early 40s, she was tired in a way that sleep could not fix. She loved Darnell, but sometimes she wondered what her life might have looked like if she had chosen herself more often. She dreamed about small luxuries, a day in the park with nothing to do, sleeping past sunrise without worrying about bills or a car that would not start. She folded those thoughts into a corner of her mind. They were a team, she told herself. That is what love is, a long endurance. The day everything changed was ordinary until it was not. Darnell bought a lottery scratch-off on a whim at a gas station on his way home. Janelle was working a double. When she walked in, Darnell was grinning, waving the ticket like a flag. "We made it," he said, breathless. He kept saying it until Janelle laughed and cried at once. She called Maurice, then her best friend from high school, Yolanda, and told them everything might finally be all right. The next morning they went to the state lottery office to claim the winnings. It was the $8 million cash option. Janelle let herself dream. A small house outside the city. Maybe a return to school. Space to breathe. Darnell said he wanted a new car, to pay off Loretta's debts, maybe a trip to Hawaii. They began looking at houses online together. Janelle even allowed herself to look at dresses in a store she usually passed without entering, imagining what it would feel like not to check price tags. Hope came quickly, light as wind. The shift came just as fast. Within days, Darnell's phone filled with calls from people Janelle had never met. Cousins she had never heard about, old friends, acquaintances, and women who claimed they used to date him. He began spending money quickly. Shoes, watches, fancy dinners at restaurants Janelle had only seen in magazines. He started coming home late. He seemed remote when he was there. Janelle tried to talk, tried to remind him of their plans, but Darnell waved her off. "Let me enjoy this," he said. "We deserve it." He smiled in a way that did not reach his eyes. She felt distance stretch between them like a bridge beginning to crack. When the money hit their account, Darnell quit his job. He began partying, traveling with his friends, renting luxury cars, booking rooms in hotels Janelle had never stepped foot in. The first hard argument came when Janelle suggested paying off debts and setting aside money for retirement. Darnell accused her of trying to control him. That night he did not come home. Janelle kept the house in order. She ignored whispers from neighbors and the worried looks from friends. She cleaned up after Darnell's gatherings and called Loretta for guidance, but Loretta only said, "Let him have his fun. He earned it." Janelle held her tongue and swallowed that sentence whole. Darnell's son stopped visiting regularly. He was busy with his own life now that there was money in the picture. Janelle adjusted to absence as if it were another chore. She folded clothes, paid bills, and waited for Darnell to want solid ground again. One evening, after a late shift, Janelle came home to find her clothes stuffed into trash bags on the porch. The locks had been changed. Laughter floated from inside the house, a woman's laugh. Janelle knocked. The door opened. Darnell barely looked at her. "You do not live here anymore," he said. "We are done. Papers are coming." Behind him stood a woman in a designer dress and expensive heels. She glanced at Janelle like she was a delivery left at the wrong address. Janelle asked to talk. She asked to come in. Darnell shut the door. The woman laughed again. Janelle sat on the steps for an hour and waited for the door to open. It did not. The divorce papers arrived the next morning, handed to Janelle by a sheriff's deputy while she was staying with her cousin Shanice across town. Janelle could not eat or sleep. Tears left her dizzy. Every call to Darnell went to voicemail. When she spoke to Loretta, the answer was short. It is best to let him move on. Friends she had known for years stopped returning messages. Even Darnell's son sent a single text. He is happy now. Just let him live. Janelle felt invisible in a city that had once felt like home. The rooms around her seemed to echo with what used to be. For months, Janelle drifted. She split time between Shanice's spare room in Birmingham and her godmother Evelyn's small apartment in Memphis. She took temporary jobs where she could, cleaning offices, working the register at a gas station, filling in as a home health aide. She paid for groceries. She kept moving because stopping felt like sinking. Nights were the worst. She lay awake, replaying conversations and sacrifices, remembering how often she had put Darnell and his family first. She wondered whether anyone would love her fully, or whether her life had been a long mistake. Shame held her by the throat, telling her not to fight back. Maurice remembered the courthouse, the jokes, the papers. "Did you all sign something that day?" he asked. The question cut through fog. It took Janelle a week to find the old folder in a battered box of belongings. There it was, the prenuptial agreement, yellowed and creased, but legible. The document was simple, 2 pages handwritten in neat block letters, both of their signatures beneath. It stated that if Darnell came into any substantial money during the marriage, lottery, inheritance, a settlement, anything, and they later divorced, Janelle would receive all of it. The language was plain. The intent was plain. Janelle remembered the night they wrote it and Darnell's breath-warm promise. I will never leave you. But if I ever do, you will never have to worry again. She had been the one to insist on it. He had agreed easily. He even said, if I ever get rich, it will only be because you helped me get there. Before the vows, Janelle had held Darnell up through every downturn. She had taken loans to keep his head above water, juggled shifts, cleaned offices, braided hair, and sold assets to keep bills paid. She had paid for classes and a used car so he could find steady work. She had moved life's furniture around so he would not trip over it. When the money arrived, Darnell forgot. He became new car bright and party loud, so certain of his reflection that he did not look for the document tucked in a drawer. He assumed Janelle would fade quietly, the way she had quietly fixed everything else. He assumed wrong. Janelle found an attorney named Carter who agreed to take her case on contingency after he read the agreement. This is enforceable, he said. A promise is a promise. Janelle did not feel triumphant. She felt tired. She was not after revenge. She wanted a place to rest, a bed that was hers, a door that locked from the inside. The legal fight was swift. Darnell tried to argue. He said he had not fully understood. He said it was unfair. Judge Whitaker read the document, asked a few questions, and looked at the signatures. Carter spoke little. The paper did the talking. The ruling was short and clear. All of Darnell's lottery winnings were to be transferred to Janelle, effective immediately. The order was stamped. The clerk recorded it. Carter handed Janelle a copy and squeezed her shoulder. She walked out of the courthouse without looking back at Darnell's side of the room. The day the money hit her account, Janelle sat on the edge of Shanice's twin bed and stared at the bank app on her phone. She thought she might feel vindication, but instead a deep, steady relief washed over her. She did not call anyone. She did not post anything. She put the phone down and breathed. Janelle used a small portion to buy a modest single-story house in Savannah, far enough from Atlanta that she did not have to worry about accidental reunions. She planted a small garden behind the kitchen, tomatoes, peppers, collard greens, herbs in clay pots. She paid off every remaining debt. She reimbursed friends and family who had helped her in the past, quietly, without ceremony. She did not buy a luxury car or take extravagant trips. She shopped at the same grocery stores, joined a community center, and returned to worship at a church that had once brought her comfort. She made anonymous donations to the hospital where she had worked, directing funds to patients without family support. Some days, loss still pressed on her ribs. She missed the idea of the family she had believed in. She missed the feeling of being necessary. But for the first time in years, Janelle slept through the night. She woke without dread. She did not owe anyone anything. That was a freedom she had never known. Meanwhile, Darnell's life slid. The woman he had chosen left when she understood the money was gone. Friends stopped returning his calls when the parties ended. His car was repossessed. His phone was disconnected. The house where he had changed the locks fell into foreclosure. Eventually, Darnell moved back in with Loretta, who asked for rent and offered little conversation. The laughter had left his voice. The mirror gave back a face he did not like. He started to remember promises in a courtroom echo. Janelle heard about his unraveling from an old neighbor, Mr. Curtis, who called to check on her. He has nothing left, he said. All that money and nothing to show for it. Janelle listened. She said she hoped Darnell was all right and ended the call. She did not gloat. She did not revisit the past like a highlight reel. Janelle believed in letting consequences do their work. She did not need to witness it or guide it. She focused on her garden, on the slow satisfaction of growth that requires tending. She cooked simple meals. She read in the afternoon sunlight that fell across her small living room. She met with a financial planner who explained safe investments and long-term stability. She set up college funds for her nieces and for Morris's children. She created a small scholarship at a local community college for adult learners returning to school and healthcare support roles. She replaced her aging sedan with a reliable hybrid and kept the color dull to avoid attention. She bought good shoes for walking the neighborhood. She volunteered twice a month at a clinic to help with intake and comfort for patients waiting alone. She recognized their faces. She remembered what it was like to be tired and unseen. One afternoon in spring, Janelle walked the perimeter of her yard, inspecting the tomato vines. The leaves were healthy. She thought about the years she had spent holding everything up: bills, schedules, egos, promises. Now she was standing on her own 2 feet. It felt like balance rather than solitude. She did not tell many people what had happened. Yolanda knew the outline. Maurice knew the details and held them like a vault. Evelyn sent a note that said simply, "Rest now." Janelle kept her circle small and clear. Calm replaced noise. Routine replaced crisis. Darnell called once from an unfamiliar number. Janelle let it go to voicemail. His voice was careful. He said he wanted to apologize. He said he was sorry for how everything unfolded. Janelle listened, then deleted the message. Forgiveness, she decided, did not require conversation. It required release. Months turned into a year. Janelle's house smelled like rosemary and fresh coffee in the mornings. On Saturdays, she drove to a farmer's market and bought flowers for the front room. She took long walks, stopping to watch the river when she felt like it. She spoke softly to herself, not in reprimand, but in reassurance. She thought sometimes about the courthouse and the quick stroke of a pen years earlier, about how a small measure of preparation had become the bridge she walked to safety. She was grateful to her mother for the voice that had insisted on protecting the future, even when love felt permanent. The prenuptial agreement had not been a trap. It had been a promise that took her history into account. Her labor, her sacrifice, her steadiness. It acknowledged that windfalls can pull people apart. It told the truth about risk. For once, the paper did not ignore the quiet worker. Janelle visited Atlanta a few times to see Maurice and his children. The city looked the same and different. The skyline was familiar. The neighborhoods had shifted. She felt a soft sadness, and then a gentle gratitude that life can widen without bitterness. She drove past the old apartment building where she and Darnell had once sat on the stairs with peach soda and chips. She thought of that version of them, their good intentions, their hard work, their laughter between crises. She did not dismiss it. She honored it for what it was and let it rest. Back in Savannah, Janelle kept building a life that fit her. She learned to quilt from a neighbor and joined a small group that met on Thursdays. She hosted Maurice and his family for a long weekend, filling the house with the sound of children and the smell of baking bread. She watched the stars from her back porch when the air was clear. On the anniversary of the court ruling, she took a quiet drive to the coast and sat on a bench facing the water. The horizon looked steady. She thought of the years of endurance and the sharp turn that had nearly broken her. She thought of the promise she had made to herself to live with dignity. She did not need applause. She did not need her story told over and over. The victory was private and complete. A safe home, settled accounts, and a peace that did not depend on anyone's permission. She had learned the shape of her own life and chosen it. News of Darnell reached her less and less. Once, Maurice mentioned in passing that Darnell had found part-time work and was keeping to himself. Janelle nodded and wished him well in her heart. Compassion did not erase history. It simply refused to add new chapters of conflict. Janelle kept a copy of the old agreement in a small fireproof box with her other important papers, not as a trophy, but as a record. It reminded her that foresight matters, that promises can be written down, and that she is allowed to protect what she builds. She had lost almost everything: home, marriage, community, and then discovered, at the end of a long, hard road, that she could walk away with her dignity and $8 million. She stood at her kitchen sink on a bright morning, sunlight on her hands, and understood that enough is sometimes exactly this: a life you do not have to explain. If you enjoyed this story, please like, comment, and share this video with your friends. Subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you never miss a powerful story drop.